My apologies once again. So I'm Chanty Bobin. I'm the Deputy Director of Multilateral Financial Affairs and Development at the Director General of the Treasury. And first of all, on behalf of the Treasury and the Ministry of the Economy, Finance, Industrial and Digital Sovereignty, I would like to thank you for your participation in our launch of the new French Strategic Investment Plan for Development through the second phase of PISD. And I would like to warmly thank the FAIRD for organizing this webinar. My apologies once again for being late. So very quickly, I would just like to say a few words about the context. This morning, and maybe some of you were there too, I was at the National Council for Development and International Solidarity, and one of the themes that we talked about was the mobilization of public revenue. And there's a program in Addis Ababa 10 years ago, and then in a few weeks, of course, we have the Seville conference for the fourth conference on financing for development. All of this to say that 10 years ago and 2 weeks from now, domestic revenue mobilization is at the head of all the international declarations on financing for development, and rightly so, because this is a theme which is timely, opportune, and essential. So I don't want to take up too much time. I would just like to say that the French strategy for domestic revenue mobilization brings together many people within our platform for interministerial exchange, which brings together colleagues from the Director General of Public Finance, AFD, Expertise France, FAIRD, and the Director General at the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs. Of course, our program has means, budgetary means, thanks to the Ministry of the Economy and Finance, which is normal given these themes. It's linked to taxes, tax administration, the economy, but above all, this is a partnership with the various members of our platform, and we will be saying more about this. And I would like to salute the various members of the platform. And without further ado, I will give the floor to my colleague François Vandeville, who will say a few words by way of introduction. Thank you very much, and I hope we will make up for some of the lost time. And I will be taking the floor after François. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madame Bobin. Delighted to meet you, at least virtually, on this occasion. Thank you, Director of FAIRD, Mr. Cabrillac, dear members of the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me highlight the quality of the tight partnership between the Treasury, represented by Chanty, and the Directorate General for Global Affairs at the Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs in this area. And this is at the heart, I believe, of our success of PISD II. And PISD II has a shared ambition, French public operations combined with financial expertise, strategic piloting, and a political vision of development. PISD II is at the heart of a new narrative around the relations between France and our partners, namely in sub-Saharan Africa. We are no longer there to provide funding. We are co-creating budgetary sovereignty of beneficiary states based on their priorities, in conformity with a partnership approach which now characterizes relations between France and countries in Africa, based on the transformational agenda of the President of the French Republic. All of the projects being funded within PISD II are based on requests by our partner countries to ensure strong alignment with national priorities for fiscal reform and capacity building, so that the projects are mature and that our dialogue is with the sub-Saharan Africa. And the Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, through the mission of The department which I am in charge of has fully committed to this program, and our joint actions have already provided concrete results.
Et là, je pense à l'initiative Afrique du Forum mondial de l'OCDE, que nous cofinançons avec
And now
11 autres
the
bailleurs
forum
bilatéraux.
with the OECD, which we are funding with bilateral partners, this initiative allowed 37 African countries to collect 3.8 billion euros in fiscal revenue thanks to the automatic exchange of information across information systems and 2.2 billion over the last 2 years.
Je pense aussi au TADAT, le Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool, qui permet en liaison avec le FMI de mieux connaître les
So the tax
forces
liaison
et
tool with
faiblesses
the IMF is a way
fiscales
of
des
seeing what the
bénéficiaires.
strengths and weaknesses are in the
Voilà, c'est
beneficiary tax
l'élément
systems.
préalable à toute assistance
And
technique
this
en
is
matière de
necessary
DPRM.
before any
Grâce à
technical
celui-ci,
assistance. And
afin que
thanks
deux
to
pays
the latter,
d'Afrique
22 countries in
Francophone
Africa,
disposent
French-speaking
désormais d'une
countries,
évaluation qui leur
now have an
permettra,
assessment which
pour
will
leur
serve as
performance fiscale
guidelines
et le
for
renforcement
tax
de leur
reform
capacité.
and capacity building.
Alors ensuite, autre résultat, mais là dans le champ bilatéral, je pense au renforcement des capacités des administrations, qui se trouve illustré de manière emblématique, en particulier par notre soutien ferme à l'Académie
This has
régionale.
been clearly shown through our support to the OECD Academy that was opened last September 2024 in Lomé. They train inspectors and financial analysts from all French-speaking countries in order to fight tax fraud. There is a cooperation between 16 African countries. They have trained to make sure that they can track illicit fiscal flows, and I would like to thank your cooperation on this area. But we also have other challenges, not only the technical issues. The MAE is also making sure that the DRM, the domestic revenue mobilization, is promoted. This is something that we discussed at the G7, the G20, but also at other international levels. For the next conference for financing the development that will take place in Seville, we will seize this opportunity to promote the DRM and international cooperation. We are convinced that an efficient, fair, and a stable tax collection is helping societies and helping our partner countries to have a sustainable and autonomous financing at the service of their population. We all work for a assistance tool for democracy, and we want to highlight how important this is for our democratic values. This is a key foundation to increase budget autonomy, but also to strengthen the legitimacy of institutions. I would like to highlight the incredible work of the Treasury Department for its efforts, including during the in interministerial areas with the support of PISD. We now can make sure that the PISD will be efficient for our partners, but also for our interests. I want to make sure that this instrument is visible because it shows what we work for, an efficient cooperation with our partners for peace and international security. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss this topic, and I will be very happy to hear from you, and now I'll give the floor back to Chanty. Thank you very much, François. And I would like to briefly comment on what you just said, but then I will give the floor back to Bruno at 3:30. So I would like to come back to what you said about cooperation with our partner countries. I think that it is actually a key moment for international cooperation because the Presidential Council for International Partnership took place a few weeks ago. It's the new key framework for our international partnerships. And in a few days, we will have the CEVI conference. As you said, the support to domestic revenue mobilization is key. And this morning, we also discuss issues around over-indebtedness. And in France, we have been working very hard on this topic, including with work on this issue. But we know that to finance public finances, for public finances, we also need to make sure that we can relieve our debt. And we know that having stable and sustainable public finances is key. This helps us finance public infrastructure, but also support our people while maintaining sovereignty. So public revenues are key, and having a good macroeconomic framework, a stable framework, a well-thought framework with efficient policies is also essential to make sure that we can manage the public debt. And I know that with public revenues, with tax revenues, we can make sure that we have a long-term development. After the CPPI and before the FD4 for the CEVI conference, we are at a crossroad, and we know that countries do need financing, and we know that there is a lot to do to achieve the sustainable development goals. We also know that there are many macroeconomic challenges today because there is a lot of uncertainty. But one thing is certain, we know that it is very important to work with countries to increase public revenues and to make sure that we can have enough autonomy and sovereignty. So I would like to now discuss the PISD, so the Strategic Investment Plan for Development. The first phase had two priorities, but I do not want to discuss them now. I just want to focus on two priorities for the PISD II. First, the first priority is to broaden the tax base, to increase tax revenues, and secondly, to increase operational skills. I think that these three priorities are very clear, and they see that we have learned from the first phases of PISD. As you know, the countries we work with are beneficiary, but also and mostly partner countries, and this spirit of cooperation is at the heart of our work, and it is at the heart of our meeting today. And I would like to highlight a very pragmatic issue when it comes to our partner countries that will work with us, but also partners that are involved in our French platform, because we have a new logo, and I would like for us to use this logo and promote it. When you because I think that this logo is sending a clear signal and showing how much we work for domestic revenue mobilization. And I see that it is 3:30, so I will not go into the different success stories of the past years. I think that our colleagues will discuss these topics, and I think they will be able to share with you their experience, be it from the Benin or Mauritania. And I'm very happy to hear back from you. And Bruno, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Shanti, and thank you, François, for your introductions. So I will not repeat what you've just said, but I just want to repeat that we will only focus on internal revenues. It was already the case last year, and because of the economic situation. So this is why it is very important to make sure that our assistance works as a lever to make sure that our partners can increase their domestic revenues, including tax revenues. And this, I'm sure, will be a key topic in Seville during the conference and also in Addis Abeba. And I just want to do a bit of self-promotion because during the Seville conference in July at 12:30, Ferdi will organize a specific event on our strategy for domestic revenue mobilization. We will talk about tax gaps in partnership with UMOA Commission. So now we would like to discuss this further, and to that point we have a panel of partner countries representatives. So countries that cooperate for domestic revenue mobilization. First, we have Mr. Sid Ahmed Ould Desha, coordinator of the Fiscal Policy Unit in Mauritania, and Charles Yeoyenou, he is director of the Tax Policy Unit at the Ministry of Economy and Finance in Benin. And we will also hear from Sharon Ozer. She's responsible for the Global Tax Program and senior economist at the World Bank. Because this is not only a partnership, a bilateral partnership, it is also a partnership with international organizations because they do play a key role in this work. And we have global initiatives and international initiatives on domestic revenue mobilization. And for the French side, we will have Fadela Faket. She's head of state resources, financial systems, and local governance unit for the governance department in Expertise France. And she will discuss different programs and their implementation. And we also will hear from Julie Froment. She will discuss as an expert. She is a state administrator and deputy head of Department for International Relations for the Directorate General for Public Finance. She will help us to remember what to let us know what the technical issues around the PISD are. So we will have two main topics. The first topic will be feedback from the PISD, and the second round of discussion will be forward-looking, and we will discuss what the prospects are regarding PISD II. And for the first round of discussion, I would like to give the floor to Seren Ozer from the World Bank.
The floor is yours. I think you will describe the coordinated action of the multilateral organization and especially the World Bank on this issue of domestic resource mobilization. Sharon, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Bruno. Thank you, our hosts and organizers. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to be with you today, and I apologize for speaking in English. Over the years, I tried to master French, and I hope it's a journey that at some point I'll succeed. Can you see my screen on full screen, Bruno?
No, unfortunately not.
How about now?
That's great.
Excellent, thank you. Colleagues, what I would like to do is give a flavor of the very, very valuable contribution of France to this ecosystem of domestic revenue mobilization by situating, giving you some context on the France's valuable support to international organizations that provide technical assistance, and in our case, also concessional lending to domestic revenue mobilization work. And hopefully that will illustrate the amazing work that our country counterparts and colleagues do. Of course, they are the true leaders, and we are more in a supporting role. France is a very valuable partner to the global tax program that I lead in the World Bank. Just to illustrate you, global tax program has been around since 2018. And then we recently in early 2024 started the second phase of the program. And in the second phase, as you can see, France plays an extremely important role. But I want to emphasize France's contributions go much more beyond, above and beyond the financial support. We have very strong representation, a strong voice, a valuable perspective in the steering committee. We often get together twice a year officially, but also a lot of kind of informal but valuable interactions with our development partners who represent France. And through them, we make strong connections both at the country level, but also for our thematic work. And I really want to emphasize the importance of that because it helps us connect with that very strong and important ecosystem that both Shanti and Francois emphasize in France that goes beyond one organization, one ministry, and also includes important partners like Verdi. What is the World Bank's role in domestic revenue mobilization? We've been very active in the DRM space, but in the last few years that became even more stronger. World Bank right now is the largest provider of finance, a concessional finance to developing countries to improve their tax systems. We work on, we support them on improving their tax systems, collecting more revenue, but also collecting more revenue in a better and fair way. So progressivity is an important aspect of that. And also equally important is creating a positive environment for investment and contributing to growth. All of these values and this importance is now captured in the World Bank Group's corporate scorecard. I wanted to mention this not for bureaucratic reasons, but I think it's extremely important, and I see in the French strategy as well, this drive for results, monitoring and evaluation, seeing what works. If things are not working at the level that we expect, what can we do differently? What can we do better? I think is extremely important, and I will try to spend a few more minutes on that. Also, the importance of domestic revenue mobilization is now part of the IDA 21 policy commitment. I think we've done great strides in the last year or two to bring in this DRM revamped DRM perspective into our comprehensive core diagnostics like public finance reviews, our technical assistance, our concessional lending, and we're very mindful about also bringing it to the center of country partnership framework discussions, for instance, if DRM is a key constraint or a key opportunity for that country. This is just an illustration of what this result orientation looks like. I think we are all familiar with tax revenue to GDP 15% threshold, but it really goes beyond that because that indicator probably there's so much behind it. So we're also looking at the results in each of our projects interventions and trying to make sense of that also with qualitative assessments. So it's really a kind of a holistic approach. Another thing I want to mention is, and I think that goes to Shanti's valuable point, that connected macro fiscal context, the revenue, but also expenditure. So it's the full picture. So we work with our country counterparts in providing core diagnostics, but also sort of key entry points through the public finance reviews. We've become, I think, over the years, much more focused on ensuring that each country has a high quality public finance review that has the macro fiscal context. For instance, if debt issues are really important, these are highlighted. How does it connect to revenue needs and strategy and key actions that's required to increase revenue while also paying attention to other important elements like progressivity, simplicity, but also looking at the very important part of the expenditure side by also looking at strengthening budget institutions, for instance. Now, moving on to global tax program, where France is a very valuable partner. It's one of the key vehicles of the bank in domestic revenue mobilization. In addition to our concessional lending, we have non-lending instruments. So that's our analytics, advisory services, technical assistance. The Global Tax Program funds about 2/3 of all World Bank's non-lending activities. What's really important to emphasize, though, these non-lending activities go hand in hand with our concessional lending. So if we're talking about GTP supporting countries overall with the 50 million budget, we're really talking about maybe billions leveraged because it sort of ties into informing and going hand in hand with our concessional lending. A lot of our focus is at the country level. Later, I will show a slide of showing you the regions we focus on, and we're firmly situated in World Bank operations. The program had a very detailed midterm evaluation a couple of years ago, and it was found to be performing really well against OECD DAC criteria. But also what I want to mention, and maybe Bruno will discuss this more in the second part of our panel, there's a lot of focus on results. We report twice a year our results, but also in that context, we report how we collaborate with partners on the ground. So there's less risk of duplication and more opportunities for collaboration and leveraging each other's comparative advantages. So just to give you a flavor, we supported over 112 countries, a lot of capacity building and training, and the powerful multiplier effect that I mentioned. We informed concessional lending projects over close to 8 billion, specific part of it related to tax over 2 billion. Now, maybe very quickly, the country focus seems to be the support to regions and country focus seems to be very synergetic to France's focus areas. Our priority is low income and low middle income countries. About 2/3 of our countries are IDA eligible countries. the needs are greatest in fragile and conflict situations. The work is also much harder. So we make a deliberate effort to whenever there's a country demand, to go to fragile settings and to ensure that we could be there for our client counterparts. And more than half, close to half of our support goes to Africa over the years, especially with the very kind nudging of our, I think, French counterparts. We've been paying more and more focus to Francophone Africa, and our portfolio for Francophone African countries has been growing. And this is just sort of give you a flavor of the countries we've supported over the years. Maybe I'll also mention, so while 90% of our portfolio goes to country-specific support, we found that it was very important to have some thematic support as well that can mobilize and respond to the needs at country level, all the while also sort of collect lessons and also help countries learn from each other across regions. So in that context, we work specifically on international tax, and I think very much aligned with the France's strategy. Reforming tax expenditures, tax incentives is also very important. We work on micro tax administration data and how that work with client counterparts inform how to improve voluntary tax compliance, firm growth, maybe getting more jobs in the formal sector, and tax administration, tax policy, and the synergies between tax administration, customs administration is also very important. We have limited time, but I want to mention environmental taxation can be a very strong lever. So taxes is not only about raising revenue, but it can also be a strong driver for changing behavior. So some of our work also focuses on environmental taxation, and from that perspective, tax and development. So for instance, excise taxes on tobacco and alcohol could be pretty transformative for health outcomes at population level, and thinking about a very well-functioning tax system can also create further incentives for women to participate into economic activities. So we also work on these. But Bruno, I think I've really abused my time allocation. Maybe I'll stop there, and then in the second round, if I can go into more details. Thank you. Over, back to you.
Thank you very much, Seren. So, je retiens de votre intervention trois éléments importants.
So I draw three very important elements from your presentation, and this is linked to our next speakers. First of all, the increasing importance of Francophone Africa in the beneficiaries of your actions. Secondly, and more particularly in these actions, and this is true for all of the actions in favor of development, and more particularly the fact that your actions are based on results, and also the importance of lessons to be drawn from the country experiences, from other countries' experiences. And this renders all the more important what the beneficiary countries will be telling us about. So I will immediately give the floor to Mr. Deschag to talk about the experience in PISD, the first phase, in Mauritania. Mr. Deschag, you have the floor.
Bonjour.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor and to give me the chance to take part in this very important webinar. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to prepare a proper paper, but I would like to give some feedback on the experience in Mauritania, and also to talk about what remains to be done for the tax reforms that are now underway in Mauritania.
Pour aller rapidement au sujet, nous avons
So, to jump right in, over the past few years, we have undertaken major and very ambitious reforms in our tax systems. The essential goals have been to modernize our tax systems and our tax administration, to favor economic growth and the formalization of the economy. And naturally, our third essential objective has been to improve domestic resource mobilization and depend less on outside financing. In terms of modernization of our tax system, the goal is to simplify and to make the system more efficient. That was the basis for the reforms we have undertaken. We tried to translate those two objectives and at the level of taxes and the different types of classes. For example, for revenues, we had one tax for each type of revenue. And one tax on wages and S-Alibab. These are specialized taxes for corporate revenues, and also the RCM tax, which taxes financial transactions. So that is the simplification that has been implemented. We also increase simplification in the declaration systems. Every time it's been possible, we've implemented flat taxes so that it's simpler to declare. And we tried to make as progressive as possible, whenever possible, and when it's manageable by the tax administration. Indirect taxation simplification has also led us to adopt one single tax on transactions of goods and services. So there's VAT, and then financial transactions. We have something that's similar to VAT, which is a tax on financial transactions. So that's for income taxes and indirect taxes. And we also have, so for at the borders, we respect the guidelines by the World Trade Organization, and the tariffs are the only way to protect our ports, but there aren't only tariffs for ports. There are also satellite taxes for customs, but these are very low. The significant revenue comes from customs, and those are the taxes that have a cap established by ECOWAS. We are not a member, but we are an associated partner. So very quickly, that's what we have done in our tax system. And now for tax administration, we've tried to have functional organizations and to separate support functions from operational functions, and also that separate the front office and back office. So front office, public relations, and then the operating functions to make the tax administration more efficient. And then for strengthening capacity, we've given priority to tax declarations to encourage citizens to file their tax forms. And so that's what the essential points in the strengthening of our tax administration. We've also created a special network for public accountants. It's the network of the DGI accountants. Formerly, we had a principle in public finance that said that we had to separate the accountants from the rest, and based on this, the DGI was in charge of liquidating the tax base, and then the Treasury is in charge of collecting taxes. This created a lot of damage for the tax base. It was very hard to collect the taxes, and then each one blamed the others. But so now we've created a network of accountants within the DGI, and this has had quite good results because now there's a single accountability in terms of identifying, of establishing the tax base, liquidating the taxes, etc. So this was a fundamental part of strengthening tax administration that allowed us to overcome certain hurdles where we were not able to collect some taxes. And then naturally, as a corollary of the declarative system, we strengthened our auditing mechanisms. So general inspections, but also a strengthening of the capacity of the accountants, of the transfer pricing experts, and then to meet new challenges arising in tax auditing. And then, of course, our information systems are vital. Our information systems are more or less efficient for tax administration. The Sidonia system, which is very well known in the region for customs, and also an information system that we call the GBAYA system, the General Tax Department, that monitors the taxes starting from the identification of a person, making sure their tax statements have been filled in, the liquidation, and then the recovery of the taxes. And so this is an integrated system which covers the entire tax chain. So that's basically what we've done in our tax system and tax administration. Another important point, institutionally speaking, very recently, 2023, we created a fiscal policy unit. It was created based on the fact that we saw that there was no structure for the Ministry of Finance, because the fiscal policy was separated across several different ministries, and most was done by DGI and in customs. But in fact, they didn't have the time or the ability to carry out fiscal policy because all of their resources were focused on collecting taxes. And those administrations did not also have the tools to implement fiscal policy because they did not have the ability to carry out the economic analyses. And they weren't familiar enough with the regulations. So this led to the creation of a fiscal policy unit, which I'm currently coordinating and which is still gaining in power. As far as results are concerned, so the results of these reforms that we have undertaken, we have managed, well, we hope that we have been able to implement the fiscal transition, that we're replacing customs by domestic resource mobilization. This has already been carried out. And then secondly, our growth is continuous since we've implemented the reforms, and so constant growth in revenue. We doubled our fiscal revenues between 2013 and 2023, 219 billion in 2013 to 50.74 billion in 2023. So a net doubling of fiscal revenue. And then a fourth figure, currently we're at 40% of debt levels, which is quite satisfactory in terms of pressure debt. And now, as far as cooperation is concerned, we have the PDFP and the PACT-FAM who have provided assistance throughout this process. Tomorrow I'll be taking part in an assessment meeting of the PACFAM. We will be attempting to assess actions that have been undertaken. I can't mention them all, there are too many. And the PSID provided training, capacity building, studies, as well as the implementation of our strategic plan. And there are many, many actions which I won't be able to mention. And tomorrow, so we will have a meeting on the subject and we will carry out the assessment of the actions which have been undertaken through PACFAM.
I think that I can stop here, and I think I've already mentioned quite a few topics that are relevant here. Thank you very much, Mr. Deschacq, for your feedback, and we see that your outcomes are very impressive and that the tax transition was successful. I will now give the floor to Charles Yehuyenou. He will also give us his feedback regarding his country, and he's the director of the tax policy unit, which it seems is a key contact point for reform coordination when it comes to tax issues and policies. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the organizers for the invitation. Indeed, we have been a beneficiary of the AFD program. We have received around 4.5 billion euros in two different stages. The first stage was about a domestic revenue mobilization, and we had a second stage. And for the second stage, we focused on increasing the tax information system. For the first stage, it was a small amount of money, but it allowed us to achieve a lot because during 15 to 18 months, we have adopted several reforms that have helped us to increase our tax revenues. We have also improved tax compliance. We have a new strategy for communication and promotion. We have organized tax compliance sessions with local representatives, with key partners. So we see that people embrace the topic of domestic revenue mobilization. We have also been able to update our information system, which helped us adopt new systems for digitalization. We have organized several research projects. They have helped us improve the taxation of digital big companies. So we have improved the digital taxation system. We also have organized another research project that helped us broaden the tax base. We also have received several training sessions when it comes to the banking system taxation, because you know that this is a domain that is not easy to manage. And we have also received a training session on gambling activities. So this was for the first stage. We have assessed the tax potential, which gave us many interesting information because Benin is currently also looking at its property tax system because we are doing an update of the land register, and this will obviously help us in this regard. We also carried out a benchmark study with Rwanda. As I was saying, the first stage was carried out in a very short time period, but as you can see, we still managed to have several achievements. The second stage was the information system update, where we have 3 pillars. First, the IT architecture system and the adoption of a business intelligence system. We already had business intelligence, but because we migrated from a system to a newer IT system, this had become outdated, so we had to renew the system. We have improved a lot, and this will be completed in a few months. We are also working on the digitalization process of several processes. We will be able to digitalize tax collection for smaller companies and companies that are not included yet. This will help us again update IT systems and our IT servers, and this will be completed in a few months. We have 1 year left with this program, but we are confident that we will achieve our goals within a year. So during this first stage, I would say that tax revenues in Benin are doing quite well, as Mauritania was saying. Well, we haven't tripled it, we haven't doubled it, but we have tripled our tax collection. Compared to 2016, we have tripled our tax revenues. So we have a low tax pressure, but we have now achieved 0.5% each year. So we have increased it of 0.5. We have 12.2 in 2022, and we had 13.2 in 2024, and we think that we will be able to be at maybe 14 in 2025. So that's it for the first stage. Thank you. Thank you. It was very interesting to hear from both of you. We see that you are quite happy, so we are happy we've chosen you to discuss this. I will now give the floor to Fadela Fakre. She is more specifically working for technical assistance. So she's head of State Resources, Financial Systems and Local Governance Unit, and so working for Expertise France. I will now give you the floor, and please let us know how these partnerships work. How do you set priorities in capacity building operations, and how does the accountability works in these projects? You have the floor. Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you Mr. Deschag and Mr. Yeouyenu, and thank you to the Treasury Department and to FERDI for giving Expertise France the opportunity to talk about the launch of PISD II, because it is a key moment when it comes to domestic revenue mobilization. So if we want now to see the outcomes of PISD I, we can say that it was a successful way of achieving our ambitions. 25 billion euros were used with 8 flagship projects in different countries. We had also regional projects with the CEMAC and UMR, and we also had national projects in Senegal, Guinea, or in Benin and Mauritania, and Burkina and Niger. We had very promising results with achievement levels at more than 80%. We had seven French administration experts that do offer support to partner countries, and more than 9 million euros of funds collected at the European Union level. So we see that we have managed to attract different international donors. This first stage was very successful, as you could have heard from our 2 partner countries for 2 projects that are still in progress. So I would like to mention 2 flagship projects. So the first one linked to, the PAMC project, the support for the modernization of the tax information system. In Benin, it is an example of the transformation of the tax information systems through a voluntary modernization process. And we have worked closely with the authorities in Benin, and they have helped us in a very productive way. It was a very successful cooperation and has anchored the reform in a cooperation framework through ownership of tools and new systems by the authorities. As you know, Benin is one of the most advanced countries in the sub-region when it comes to tax digitalization. We have more than 85% of companies in this process. So it was only at 45% a few years ago. And this is possible thanks to this project and through the cooperation of the national authorities. We have improved the exchange of data and knowledge. We have helped dematerialize processes to increase tax compliance and reduce fraud, and we have increased the performance, security and stability of IT systems. This shows clearly how the PISD can adapt to the human and technical realities of a specific country through a very systemic process, because we have a technical assistance, but we also have organizational assistance. This project is a reference point for future projects, thanks to its methodology and its success.
un peu la même chose que nous
We
souhaitons atteindre là dans le cadre du P2FP qui a été
want to
mentionné
have the same outcomes through the P2FP for Mauritania, which is a specific project where we have focus on training, tools and skills.
Notamment dans un contexte, dans un pays confronté à des contraintes budgétaires assez importantes.
We have very strict budgetary constraint and a high reliance on external aid when it comes to Mauritania. So we wanted to lay the foundation of a more autonomous and efficient public finance system with more transparency and efficiency. We wanted to focus on human skills through training modules for public administration, for example. We have also helped developing new tools for planification and monitoring of budget issues, and we have also worked on international cooperation. The P2F2 is also working closely with the PACFAM, the support project for public finances, which is EU funded. So we see that we have two types of financing. So we have the same strategy of managing human resources through training programs and support programs with an individual assessment of each stakeholder. So this allows Mauritania to have tailor-made support programs that helps them implementing reforms, among other things. This is also a good example of the role played by Expertise France with different technical and finance partners, because what we want to achieve is to be aligned with other bilateral international organizations, the World Bank, the IMF, and so on, but with also other bilateral partners with Mauritania. So these projects are in line with the PISD project. We want to have tailor-made projects, to have a new methodology, and to have programs that are that have the same priorities as the national authorities. During the last 3 years, we see that the security context is very delicate in the Sahel region, and one of the main technical conclusions of our project is the lack of infrastructure or technical setups that have made things complicated. But we also have learned that for the design of the second phase of the PISD, we needed to increase the strategic coherence and the sustainability of the PISD. We have started working on improving the PISD, and we contribute for the strategy and for the implementation, and this is our work. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Fadela, et merci d'avoir
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fadela, and thank you for discussing also the different challenges, because we have heard from success stories, but obviously there are several obstacles and challenges, and this is also interesting. I would like to give the floor to Julie Froment now, because the Director General for Public Finance has many stakeholders on the ground, but for these projects, but also different projects linked to domestic revenue mobilization. So the feedback from experts on the ground, success stories, challenges, obstacles, priorities. This is also several key topics for Julie. Julie, you have the floor.
Bonjour à toutes et tous. Pour commencer, je souhaite vivement remercier également les organisateurs de ce séminaire cet après-midi.
I thank the organizer of this seminar this afternoon. I'm very happy to be here with you today to take part in the seminar and to provide the vision of the Treasury in France. To begin, let me talk about a tax administration on the stakes that have been identified by PTSD before I provide an illustration and give some examples of projects that we were able to carry out on the ground. As was already highlighted by various speakers before me, there are quick changes, a lot of uncertainty in these current times, and in such a context, the difficulties and global stakes around domestic revenue mobilizations are taking up more and more space, but they're becoming more complex with increased need for financing. And as was said in the introduction, public debt is a major challenge, and all countries face the necessity of mobilizing domestic revenue efficiently, allowing for investment in public services and to increase resources and better leverage accountability and transparency to maintain the trust of the public. So, sustainably broadening the tax base is a goal of the tax administration, and that is a priority for all states. As a tax administration, we have identified and we've done everything we can to implement projects which partake in this. And we've identified three major challenges in the framework of PISD. The first is relationships with end users and fighting against fraud. We've already seen in the examples of projects that were presented this afternoon already. So fiscal civics, obtaining or onboarding citizens, as well as stronger action in favor of fighting against frauds and all tax evasion. I will give some examples of projects implemented by experts from the DG FIP in this area. The second major challenge is improving the efficiency of administrations. This is an essential part of our actions, and we insist on this alongside the necessity, and this was also something that was mentioned several times this afternoon, so the necessity to insist on training of agents throughout the projects that can be carried out. And the last challenge that we've encountered, and where we believe it's extremely important to invest and implement projects, this is digital transformation. The examples which have already been provided, notably by Bénin, are a very telling example of this. Financial administrations have a major role to play in the digital transformation, and using data and utilizing data is a major challenge which forces us to rethink how we're organized and also to accompany training efforts for all tax agents. So those three main areas guide our actions at DG FIP in the framework of projects that we implement in the framework of PISD. And the DG FIP is fully committed to the platform. And we work alongside the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs, AFD, and Expertise France to reach the objectives of PISD. And just to illustrate the implication of DG FIP internationally, to say that in 2024, DGFIP deployed almost 600 man-days in expertise, mainly in favor of the African continent, and more than half of this around tax matters. We have 18 colleagues that have been detached to expertise fronts as long-term experts. And I would also like to remind you that we also welcome every year about 20 French-speaking students in our establishments and our National School for Public Finance. And we also organize visits to our own departments. This is a full part of our actions abroad. So I won't specifically come back to the projects themselves. There are already very positive results, and the colleagues, experts in DGFIP took part. And so Mr. Dishag, Madame Pacrette, the results have already been presented, so I will focus on other types of experiences. Very quickly, I wanted to illustrate the partnerships between DGFIP and a partner administration in another country, which is Cameroon. And I would like to talk about a project which has just ended just a few weeks ago. And the Public Finance Department, alongside the Tax Administration, carried out a project to make it easier for people to fill out their tax declarations every year online. And there's been a great improvement of the amount of revenues mobilized. The experts in this framework have defined a detailed methodology and ensured that the very specific specifications are respected in order to make available pre-filled out tax forms to make people's filing much easier. So sent out before the time when they have to send in their yearly tax returns. So the project is coming to an end, and I want to talk about some concrete realizations. So these tax returns, which are already pre-filled out, is a project that was co-created with the colleagues from DGI, and these pre-filled out tax forms are being used for revenues in 2024. So that's an illustration of a concrete project carried out by the experts of DGFIP within the PISD framework. So very quickly, a second illustration of actions carried out by DGFIP, and this is to come back to what Mr. Envie said in the introduction about TADAT, the Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool. And so here I'd like to mention Benin and a project that was carried out in partnership with them. In 2023, two experts from DGFIP carried out an assessment of a TADAT assessment in Benin. The first mission took place in 2019, and the experts who carried out this assessment saw clear improvement of all the indicators. So visible results showing how useful this assessment is and how they allow reforms to be implemented based on concrete facts. So the tax administration is making a lot of progress. We still need more time to look at the results, however. So that's what I wanted to say in this first part. I hope that I'll be able to present further projects and perspectives later on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Julie Favela. I was quite struck by the fact that in your interventions and all the speakers so far, it's something that I haven't mentioned explicitly, which is artificial intelligence. I imagine that in projects such as these, it's now playing an important role and an increasing role. So perhaps during the second round, you could say a few words about whether my intuition is right or not. So the second round, which will be much shorter, you have much fewer time, much less time. So we will attempt to look at the perspectives of these domestic revenue mobilization projects. We will begin with Theron.
What's next? And I guess, how do you see the evolution of the coordination challenge, which is at the heart of the project?
Thank you so much, Bruno, and thank you, colleagues, for the insightful interventions. Really fascinating discussion so far. Bruno, I think in very short, the needs are there. A lot of colleagues talked about very comprehensive interventions. These will require more resources, not less. Therefore, I think looking forward, the support to domestic revenue mobilization through all these channels that we discussed is extremely important. But also that means we need to be smart and we need to sort of build on opportunities to partner up, to collaborate, to minimize duplication, to minimize risk of, for instance, stretching our valuable counterparts like Charles and Ahmed in their efforts, because they have really important work and not sufficient resources. So all that, I think, pushes us to think very deeply about coordination and collaboration. I just want to show a very quick, only one slide on how we are approaching this in Global Tax Program. I also want to talk a little bit about the platform for collaboration on tax. I'll let my other colleagues to talk more on the bilateral issues. Perhaps they are much better suited. So let me just go here. So in the case of the Global Tax Program, we have always thought the partnerships were the way to go. We have over time collaborated with about 50 organizations. A lot of collaboration happens with our platform for collaboration on tax partners, IMF, OECD, United Nations, but also with regional tax organizations, regional banks, but also academic and think tank partners like FERDI. I think a very important area that I'm hoping that will deepen and strengthen is the collaboration with our bilateral technical assistance providers. I think Fadela and Julie's interventions made it really clear they are very important players, sometimes regionally focused or focused on priority countries. And the Global Tax Program Steering Committee allows us making these connections much more strongly. For instance, we have twice a year meetings where we, unpack all our projects, project progress, where our project teams are saying we're collaborating with XYZ partner on the ground on these tax matters. And sometimes it's really helpful because a steering committee member like Paul and Clarice can come in and say, hey, by the way, have this World Bank project team connected with Agence Française, who's doing really great work in this area. So I'm seeing this more and more happening, and it's very valuable. Some partners are also, for instance, inviting us their community of practice thematic discussions. So that might be one maybe creative idea that we could explore. And I promise language is not always a barrier. My colleagues who cover Francophone Africa are all very fluent speakers. So this, I think, goes a little bit to the strategic coordination. What we try to provide as the GT Global Tax Program Secretariat is to make the collaboration aspects a core part of monitoring and evaluation process at project level, so that it's very transparent and all colleagues, especially our partners who have bilateral technical assistance operations can see what areas we're working on, who we're collaborating with, and where might be the opportunities to build further collaboration. Then, of course, there are that collaboration happens at the global thematic levels, such as international taxation issues. There we work closely with OECD, but also with our regional partners like ADB and ATAF. And it seems like France is doing similarly as well, from what I understood from Francois' intervention. On the innovative tools, I just want to say, while Tadat Secretariat is situated in the IMF, we also think it's an amazing tax administration tool, especially with the new field guide, with repeat Tadat assessments, with implementation plan that follows now the assessments. And we in the World Bank, within the global tax program, situated funding for our bank staff to ensure that they can be part of Tadat assessments, they can be part of the follow-through. So we're trying to further strengthen that link. And some colleagues may have heard that the IMF and World Bank is trying to work more closely and coordinate more closely to the joint domestic resource mobilization initiative. And we're hoping this will further help us explore synergies. I want to say a few words about the platform for collaboration on tax. The secretariat of the platform is hosted in the World Bank. Core partners, IMF, OECD, UN, and World Bank coordinate and align on tax matters. One of the key activities this year is on tax incentives. We talked a lot about tax expenditure and tax incentives in terms of country support. So please tune in. There is a good principles document, and I think there'll be series of also guidance and sectoral notes, and we'd love to collaborate with partners from the French ecosystem as well as our country counterparts. Another important, I think, line of work is the medium-term revenue strategies, where the countries would be in the lead in enabling coordination of technical assistance providers. There we are revisiting, I think we're sort of doing quite a lot of reflection why the medium-term revenue strategies maybe weren't picked up at the level that we anticipated. What can we do differently and better to ensure that it really supports the countries in a flexible manner? And maybe last but not least, in the PCT context, I think it's been very valuable to think about results and monitoring with the idea of not just for the sake of result reporting, but how do we think of what we're achieving, what we may not be achieving as intendedly, and how to do some course correction. It's work in progress. We're trying to learn from each other, and it would be great to collaborate with bilateral partners as well as we think through it. We're in the early stages. I'll stop there. Thanks again. Over to you, Bruno.
Merci beaucoup, Sérène. J'ai bien entendu l'appel à
Thank you very
travailler
much. And I did hear your call to work together, especially on tax spending, on funding, and then on motivating. And our experts believe that there is a lot of strong potential to strengthen our effectiveness in our tax systems in mobilizing domestic revenue. Thank you very much. And I will now give the floor to Sid Ahmed. And I've understood that the fiscal transition was a success in Mauritania. So now what are the priorities for the coming years in Mauritania in domestic revenue mobilization? Hello again. Thank you very much, Bruno. And thank you, Seren, Julie, Fadila, and all the others for your interventions, which were very enriching and useful. To go very quickly, for fiscal policy units, yes, we work on a fiscal potential of our economy. The indicator that we have chosen is fiscal pressure. Fiscal pressure is measured at the end of 2024 was 16.9% in Mauritania. So there's quite a large potential to be exploited in this area. And at the level of the sub-region is 22%, and the ceiling set by ECOWAS as a reference is 22%. So we still have 6 points to catch up with. And this does require studies, because the Fisher pressure figure on its own doesn't mean much, because it can hide a lot. It can also not be significant enough. There may be other things that aren't taken into account, and it might not be as significant in terms of various sectors, because it may hide vast discrepancies in various sectors of the economy. So it's important to go above and beyond simple figures and fiscal pressure to explore sector by sector what the fiscal load is, what fiscal pressure is, to see what the potential is in the various sectors of the economy. So this is an area that we are currently exploring, and where naturally we require a lot of important assistance.
So the second point is the proliferation of derogatory tax system. So since 2023, we had one report on this issue, and we had 1,003 tax exemptions among 114 sub-jurisdictions. So the proliferation of exemption measures and the multiplicity of sources means that at one point of the very recent history, tax exemptions were the only tool for job creation, for tax incentives, and so on, which is not entirely efficient. We have assessed 60% of those tax measures. For the rest, we have not been able to conduct an assessment because there is no data available. So 60% only amounts to 3% of the GDP, 18% of tax revenues, and 113% of the budget deficit. And it is 3 times the annual debt payment in installments. So this shows you how significant and important this amount is. Many stakeholders and companies and entrepreneurs do not want to get rid of those measures. So this is why we need to carry out impact studies, and we work with our partners, with Expertise France, with the IMF and the World Bank for impact analysis by tax or by sector, to be able to show clearly how inefficient several measures are when it comes to achieving our goals, when it comes to job creation, to investment, and so on. So we want to show the main stakeholders how inefficient it is. Because of course, it is quite complicated and delicate. So when it comes to this topic, we would like to have technical support when it comes to the assessment of tax exemptions efficiency. So this is something that we are doing at the moment. Something else that we think is very important is the property tax. When it comes to property taxation, this topic has not been discussed, and it was not reformed. And we know that the proliferation of tax schemes in this issue is not efficient. And the amount of stakeholders is also an issue. So you have several different taxes, you have therefore many taxes that are also managed by other institutions, sometimes independent institutions, for example, when it comes to advertisement. So we have several taxes, but there are also several stakeholders. We have very different local and national authorities, which means that we have not a lot of revenues when it comes to property tax, and obviously we see that citizens are completely lost, and they might sometimes the taxpayers might sometimes have to use unofficial solutions because they are confused and lost. This is something so that we are working on. As I said, we are working on the land registry. We are working with the national authorities and local authorities to make sure that we can simplify and improve the tax base for property tax. The third point is everything that is it is something that is well known in our region, and here our goal is to work on the informal sector while also working with small and very small companies. The fourth sector is the mining sector, because today we have a lot of mining activities, for example, for gold. And this is a challenge for the finance ministry, because for the mining sector, we see that there is a significant income, but when prices are very high, contracts are drafted in a way that does not allow us to profit from these high costs, where we think that we could collect much more tax revenues in this sector. Also, we want to work on capacity building. We have a new tax policy that will also allow us to use a new tool, a modernization tool, a macroeconomic tool. So we would be very happy to use modeling tools and prospecting tools, and we would be very happy to have a training session for data analysis, because it is very important. We also want to work on the exchange of information and feedback. And so as this webinar is a good example, because we want to make sure we can hear from other partner countries and hear from other successful implementation of reforms, for example. So that's it from me. Thank you very much, Sidamed. And I think indeed that exchanging is very important, because when I was listening to you speaking, I felt like it could be for some of my colleagues from the DG FIP talking, because we have the same challenges and the same difficulties, and it is important to have these impact analysis when it comes to incomes and revenues. Charles, I have the same question for you. So could you let us know in a few minutes what your priorities are when it comes to domestic revenue mobilization in Benin? Thank you very much. I would say that in Benin we still have a lot to do. We are only starting, so we are now looking forward to keep working on PAMC, for example. We want to increase our efforts to that goal. We want more trainings. We also need training for big data, but not only from statisticians, but also for tax experts. We also want to keep working on e-trade taxation, because we want to keep working on the VAT, because that's also the main issue when it comes to e-commerce platforms, but we still have a lot to work. We want to make sure that we can manage and control the data we receive when it comes to e-shopping. We also want to work on crypto assets, because this is something that we have not discussed much, and the e-learning opportunities are also something that we want to discuss further and explore further. We think that if we could have more participants, this would help us better understand several issues. We want to also have more support when it comes to telecommunication, taxation. So this is a summary of everything that we find interesting, but we want to keep working in the same way towards a better domestic revenue mobilization. When it comes to telecommunication and taxation, Ferdi is working on this topic because it is a very interesting topic. We do not want to negatively impact data exchange, but we want to see what the tax base could be when it comes to telecommunication. Fadela, you've listened to Sid Ahmed and Charles, and you've also heard from feedback for the PISD I project. What do you have to add and what do you want to say about the second stage of the PISD? Thank you very much, Bruno, and thank you to our speakers. I would just want to come back to artificial intelligence. I have not mentioned artificial intelligence because when we discuss AI, many factors need to be included, and the first is the ability of an administration to have the material and to manage data. Of course, a donor can finance the equipment, but maintaining this equipment is also very expensive. So this is a key constraint when it comes to artificial intelligence. And also, talking about costs, we know that a digitalization strategy needs to be included in a broader digitalization strategy that is often steered by public institutions or by the Prime Minister. So this means that there are many ministries involved, and this can sometimes not be sufficiently efficient. And as was saying, as Mr. Deschag was saying, this is a very complicated sector in which we cannot necessarily intervene. Well, obviously, we are still working on this area. When it comes to data mining in the Senegal, we have worked on data science and artificial intelligence-based techniques to fight tax fraud. So yes, we are very active when it comes to the technical aspects of these issues when it comes to artificial intelligence, but because it requires a setup that is not always there when we start with an artificial intelligence program. So when it comes to what's next and when it comes to digitalization, there are several projects, and the PISD is already a innovative project with a very strategic project when it comes to expertise France. Could, for example, discuss the financing for the fight against illicit financial flows, which is a key priority. We also have the GET facility, the Gender Equality and Taxation Initiative, seeing gender as a key factor for tax equity and fairness, and we will have a side event in Seville about this topic, so you are very welcome to attend this side event. We have two side projects, DataFeed and PARFeed, where we will discuss data analysis at a regional level, and the TAGFIT, which is an integrated approach of strengthening public financing in cooperation with our partners in the Côte d'Ivoire. Now I want to discuss strategies. We want to have an increased and strengthened cooperation with our international partners when it comes to better understanding their needs, and with our economic services on the ground. This is something that needed to be improved in PISD I. The idea is to have a comitology of common instructions with our partner to have a better responsiveness and cohesion. We are working on new projects under the financing of PISD II in close cooperation with economic services and embassies and with our international partners. And I think it is important to highlight what Chanty Bobin was saying in the introduction, is the accountability aspect, because it is quite new, a new feature of the PISD II to have key indicators that allow us to assess the impact of specific projects. So we have created indicators that different indicators that help us in this area. For example, when it comes to TADAT recommendation implementation or improved tax analysis. So we have several collective projects to have a better and more coherent assessment. It is also key to mention that European project financing is also a priority. So the idea is to have European financing in line with other financing to make sure that the impact is high. Thank you very much, Fadela. Julie, you now have the privilege and the responsibility to conclude this webinar, and I think it is actually a good thing to hear from an expert. So I will now give you the floor and conclude this seminar. Well, we can have 2 or 3 minutes because we started a bit later than planned. Thank you very much. It is a lot of responsibility to conclude because we've heard a lot of very interesting presentations, and we've heard from specific achievements of the PISD in the first phase, and we already have a set of priorities and prospects for the second stage. So that was very interesting. I would like to discuss artificial intelligence because a question was asked about artificial intelligence. The project that was presented when it comes to the pre-filled tax declaration in Cameroon, we have not included artificial intelligence, but the DG FIP has also to deal with the digitalization of data and the digital transformation. So the DG FIP has implemented several projects with several partners. As Fadela Fabkret was saying, I would like to come back to the data mining project in Senegal, because it is a project that we have been involved in since September 2022. We had the technical intelligence and a data mining cell. This project is in line with the fight against fiscal fraud and the new techniques for investigation against tax fraud. And this project shows how important it is to improve the fight against tax fraud. So this project in Senegal is almost completed because we have an app that is being implemented, as my colleague from Expertise France said. And we have several topics that are very important, and we think that we need to keep working on these projects during the PISD II. And of course, we have heard from several obstacles when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence, and this needs to be taken into account. So you gave me the floor about the tax property issues. We have also used artificial intelligence for this project. It is a project with the Ivory Coast Republic, and you might have heard of this project. It is a project that aims at simplifying and improving data management. And our colleague from Mauritania has mentioned this project. It is an innovative project that shows what can be done by the DG FIP to work closely with partner administrations. I want to highlight the fact that at the DG FIP, with our partners, we have a specific expertise. We have a key cooperation with partner administrations, and this allows us to work on several topics that also directly impact us when it comes to combating fraud or improving our efficiency, and several priorities that have been mentioned today. also the
Pour ce faire, on a des
digitalization
projets
of
qui
public
sont d'ores et déjà
administrations.
engagés et
So we have
notamment
several
on a mis
ongoing
l'accent
projects,
sur
and I just want
coopération
to
avec
mention
un
a
partenaire,
cooperation project
un
with a
acteur
key
multilatéral
partner,
qui est le
a
FMI,
multilateral
avec
partner,
le PISD
DFME,
qui se réalise au Bénin,
with the
avec la
TADAT
mise en place
in
d'une
Benin,
formation à
and
Paris très prochainement,
the
dans les prochaines
creation
semaines,
of a
qui
training
vise
that will
en
take
fait à
place in a few
renforcer
weeks in Paris.
la capacité
It will strengthen
de la DGFIP à intervenir sur les évaluations
the
TADAT et donc à avoir
ability of
des évaluateurs
DGFIT
TADAT
to work
francophones.
on
Donc,
TADAT
on aura une
project and
formation
have
organisée
French
par le FMI et la DGFIP
speaking
qui va
partners.
permettre de
So this
former
project
entre
is
25 et 30
carried out with the
participants et
DGFIP. We'll be able to train between 30 to 40 participants, and we'll have
qu'on pourra mobiliser, nous l'espérons, dans le cadre
a
des
pool
PISD
of
II.
assessors that
Ça fait
will
partie des
then
axes
be able
de
to
travail importants pour nous également
be
qu'il faudra
implemented
mettre en œuvre.
under this
Donc
project.
voilà, pour conclure peut-être sur mon
To
intervention,
conclude,
souligner
I would like
l'intérêt
to
des discussions que nous
highlight
avons pu avoir cet après-midi.
the interesting exchanges
Les
that
différentes
we've
priorités,
had
on a
this
déjà pu voir
afternoon.
la mise en œuvre,
We have
je dirais,
seen that there are
caractère
already
concret, en fait, de
several
tous les projets qui ont été
concrete
mis en œuvre dans
projects and
PISD première phase.
several priorities that have
Sur
been
les
designed
priorités,
for
on a bien noté effectivement les
the
études d'impact.
PISD
Ceux
II. We
qui
have
sont très
duly
potentiels,
noted
puisque
that
c'est un sujet
impact
qui intéresse
studies
particulièrement la DGFIP.
are interesting for you, and this is a topic that is also interesting for the DGFIP. We have also noticed that there are several possibilities and priorities that have been identified for PISD II. So the broadening of tax bases and the improvement of capacity building for administrations. Thank you very much, Julie. And before concluding this webinar, I wanted to ask two questions from the chat, very good questions. What about the savings mobilization to finance project? And then we have a question to Charles,
qu'est-ce qu'on fait quand on a plus de recettes fiscales?
which is, so what do we do when we have more tax revenues? Can you invest in sustainable development issues? Well, we will not be able to answer those questions because we do not have sufficient time, but these still are very inspiring. Thank you for the questions. But don't worry, we will have other webinars on this topic of domestic revenue mobilization. So to close this seminar, I would like to give Chanty the opportunity to have a final word. Thank you very much, Bruno. I'll try and find three words. Partnership, impact, and accountability. I think these are the key words for today's exchanges. Thank you very much, everybody. I think that it was very, very interesting. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, and we will then conclude with these three keywords. Claire. Also, I wanted to say that the document has been published. I've sent the link in the chat, so it's the PISD II document. Thank you very much. Thank you for following us online. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à tous. Merci à tous et au revoir.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.